The Lego sun beat down on Mama Bimp's worn-out headscarf, but the heat was nothing compared to the fire in her heart. She clutched the twins, a boy and a girl, to her chest, their tiny bodies a constant reminder of both her joy and her endless sorrow. Her husband, a hard-working but ill-fated mechanic, had died in a freak accident, leaving her with no money, no family support, and 2 hungry mouths to feed. The twins, Taiwo and Kahind, were only a few months old, and their cries for milk echoed her own desperate prayers. Everywhere she turned, the doors were closed. Her small stall in a market barely brought in enough to buy a cup of Gary, let alone feed herself and the babies. The landlord was threatening eviction. The village elders, who had once praised her as a strong woman, now looked at her with pity, a pity she could not afford. One evening, a sleek black car pulled up to her shack. A woman stepped out, dressed in expensive lace, with a face that looked like it had never known a day of struggle. This was Chief Mrs Adinik, a barren but powerful woman known for her lavish parties and a hunger for a child of her own. She had heard of Mama Bimp's plight, and her offer was simple, yet shattering. "I will give you enough money to start a new life, to forget your troubles," she said, her voice smooth like silk. "And I will take your twins." Mama Bimp's heart hammered against her ribs. Chief Mrs Adinik's offer was a dizzying mix of salvation and damnation. The amount she was quoting was more money than Bimp had ever seen in her life, a sum that could secure her a small shop, a decent place to live, and perhaps even a fresh start. But the price was her children, her Taiwo, with his bright eyes, and her Kahind, with her little dimple. How could she? The thought alone was a betrayal of everything she held dear. She looked at the twins sleeping peacefully in their makeshift cot, oblivious to the storm raging in their mother's soul. Chief Mrs Adinik, sensing her hesitation, placed a leather briefcase on the rickety table. She opened it, revealing stacks of crisp Naira notes. "This is just the beginning," she promised, her eyes cold and calculating. "I will also set you up with a business. You will want for nothing." The devil on her shoulder screamed to take the money and run. The angel on the other side whispered of a mother's unconditional love. But the angel's voice was faint, drowned out by the twins' quiet snores and the gnawing pain of hunger in Bimp's own stomach. It was a choice between her children starving with her or thriving without her. In that moment, the choice felt less like a choice and more like a cruel necessity. With trembling hands, she reached for the briefcase, the weight of the Naira a heavy substitute for the warmth of her babies. The years passed. Mama Bimp, now a successful businesswoman selling fabrics in Balaga Market, was a different woman. She owned a bungalow in a decent part of town, drove a small car, and dressed in Ankara as vibrant as her past was bleak. People admired her, thinking she was a widow who had pulled herself up by her bootstraps. They didn't know about the empty space in her heart, the constant ache that no amount of success could fill. Every day, she would go to the market, negotiate prices, and deal with customers, all while a part of her was listening for the sound of tiny footsteps or a child's laugh. Meanwhile, Taiwo and Kahind, now known as Tony and Kimberly, were living a life of unimaginable luxury. Chief Mrs Adinik, who they knew as Mummy, lavished them with everything money could buy. They attended the best international schools, vacationed in Dubai, and had a small army of nannies and drivers at their beck and call. They were beautiful, bright, and privileged, but they were also isolated. Chief Mrs Adinik was a stern and distant mother, more concerned with their perfect image than with their happiness. They grew up knowing they were different, but never knowing why. They had a feeling that something was missing, a void that no amount of designer toys or extravagant trips could ever fill. One day, while looking through an old family album, Kahind, now Kimberly, found a photograph tucked away in a hidden pocket. It was a picture of a much younger Chief Mrs Adinik, holding a newborn baby. But what caught her eye was the woman standing next to her, a beautiful but sad-looking woman in a simple wrapper. The woman in the picture had her mother's eyes, a fact that sent a chill down her spine. Kimberly felt a strange, inexplicable connection to the woman's sad expression. She showed the photo to her brother, Tony, and they both agreed it was odd. Why would there be a picture of some random woman with their mother holding one of them? Their curiosity was a tiny spark that soon became a wildfire. They started asking subtle questions. "Mummy, who is the lady in this old picture?" "Oh, that was just an old friend," Chief Mrs Adinik would dismiss, her voice a little too quick, a little too sharp. But the twins weren't fooled. They began to notice more inconsistencies. Why were there no baby pictures of them with their father, Chief Adinik? Why did their birth certificates feel like they had been tampered with? Their investigation, a silent and secretive one, led them to the family lawyer's office, where they began to pry into old documents, driven by a growing suspicion that their lives were built on a lie. The plot thickened when Kimberly and Tony, after months of secret investigation, finally found their original birth certificates and discovered their true birth mother's name, Bimp. The shock was immense, but it was just the beginning. The lawyer, a kind old man who had always felt a pang of guilt, saw their determined faces and decided to come clean. He told them the entire story, the desperate mother, the wealthy, barren woman, and the heartbreaking exchange that had sealed their fates. He even gave them the address of Mama Bimp's shop. Armed with this earth-shattering truth, the twins went to the Balaga market. They found the shop, Bimp Fabrics, and saw a woman who looked just like this sad-looking woman from the old photograph. Mama Bimp, now a successful businesswoman, was in the middle of a transaction when she looked up and saw two young people who looked exactly like the twins she had sold so many years ago. Their eyes, bright and searching, were hers. For a moment, the world stopped. A flood of memories, of guilt and regret, washed over her. She knew instantly who they were. The silence was deafening, the air thick with unspoken truths. And then, as if to make things even more dramatic and scandalous, Chief Mrs Adinik, their supposed mother, arrived at the market, looking for a particular fabric, completely unaware that her perfect secret was about to unravel. The scene that followed was straight out of a Nollywood movie. Chief Mrs Adinik walked into the shop, saw the twins, saw Mama Bimp's tearful face, and her own composure crumbled. She knew she had been found out, but as the twins confronted her, their voices trembling with anger and confusion, she dropped an even more scandalous bombshell. "You think you know everything," she spat, her voice laced with bitterness. "But you only know half the story. The truth is your father, Chief Adinik, was the one who arranged the whole thing." She revealed that her husband, Chief Adinik, had never wanted to adopt children, but he was desperate for a male heir. He had been having a secret affair for years, and he was the one who had gotten Mama Bimp pregnant, not his wife. He had secretly orchestrated the whole thing, making Mama Bimp believe he was a good Samaritan while he was secretly her children's father, so he could have his own flesh and blood raised as his heirs without his wife's knowledge. He had wanted a clean, neat package, two children who looked nothing like him but were secretly his own. He had paid Mama Bimp for her silence, not just for her children. The twins weren't just sold. They were the product of a scandalous affair, and their biological father, their supposed adoptive father, had been pulling the strings all along. The whole city of Lagos was about to find out that the man they revered as a pillar of society was a two-faced cheat and a schemer, and that the story of the poor woman who sold her twins was nothing but a pawn in a rich man's dirty game. What did you think of that shocking twist? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more powerful stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel.